and select English. If you're on the phone, iPad, or similar device, then locate the three-dot menu in the upper right corner of your screen, click on Language Interpretation, and select English. A efecto de proporcionar acceso lingüístico, esta reunión cuenta con interpretación simultánea hacia el español. Si necesita interpretación en español y está en su computadora portátil o de escritorio, ubique el icono con forma de globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla, haga clic en Interpretación de idioma y luego seleccione Español. Si está en su teléfono, iPad o dispositivo similar, busque el menú de 3 puntos en la esquina superior derecha de su pantalla, haga clic en Interpretación de idioma y luego seleccione Español o Spanish.
Gracias. If you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, please view the meeting in the SMUHSD Board Meeting YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on our website. You may view the captions in English as we live stream our meeting tonight, and you may view the captions in a variety of other languages if you choose to watch after this meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. For our deaf and hard of hearing community, we have a team from Henna Interpreting Services, and they will be interpreting our meeting this evening. We would like to ask everyone to speak at a clear and reasonable pace for our interpreters. Thank you. Okay, we'll have our student board representatives lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will go on to report of actions taken in closed session. The Board of Trustees took the following actions during closed session. Upon the motion of Trustee Land and seconded by Trustee Griffin, they moved to approve an agreement to waive student expulsion hearing and stipulation for expulsion case 24/25-3 with a vote of 5-0. Upon the motion of Trustee Land and seconded by Trustee Chavez, moved to approve an agreement to waive student expulsion hearing and stipulation for expulsion case 24/25-4 with a vote of 5-0. Upon the motion of Trustee Griffin and seconded by Trustee Land, moved to approve an agreement to waive student expulsion hearing and agree to stay of the expulsion recommendation for case 24/25-5 with a vote of 5-0. Okay, we will move on to adopt the agenda. The Board of Trustees may either adopt the agenda as presented or make a change to the agenda through a motion, second, and majority vote. The Brown Act prohibits any additions to the agenda without a 72-hour public where we can hear some feedback from the interpreters. Yeah, it's probably. Okay. Sorry, I'll start over. The Brown Act prohibits any additions to the agenda without a 72-hour public notice for regularly scheduled board meetings. Are there any questions or comments from the Board of Trustees or Superintendent with respect to the agenda? No? Okay. If not, then are there any questions or comments from the public related to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay, anybody on Zoom? No? Okay. Okay, I would like a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Chavez, second by Trustee Land. Student board reps, how do you vote?
Vote to keep the agenda as proposed.
Okay,
Vote to keep the agenda as proposed.
thank you. Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, We'll go on to public comments. If you are joining us in person and wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comments section at the beginning of the agenda, please fill out a request to address the board form and submit it to the secretary. The form should be given to the secretary before the agenda item begins. If you are joining us virtually, use the raise hand feature on Zoom to be recognized. When invited to do so, your camera must be on before you are called upon to make a public comment. We will call on you to begin your comment once we have promoted you into the meeting. If your camera is not operational, please email your comments to the Board of Trustees at board, BOARD, at SMUHSD.org. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment, depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. How many comments do we have?
5 comments.
Okay, we will honor the 3 minutes. I'll call, the in-person first.
Okay, our first speaker is, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce names this evening, but it's Olena Babic.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you, Board President Ligia Andrea Zuniga, Vice President Robert H. Griffin, Terry
Sorry,
Chavez,
Let
Jennifer
me stop you
Jacobs.
for 1 sec. We don't have the timer up, do we?
My timer is off. Is on.
One moment, sorry. It's not on the screen. We can't. Oh, no, there it is. It's on the
Oh,
bottom right.
it's very small. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, it's on the
Sorry,
right.
you can start over. You can start over. 1
Okay.
sec. Can we start? Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you, Board President Ligia Andrea Zuniga, Vice President Robert H. Griffin, Terry Chavez, Jennifer Jacobson, Greg Land, and Superintendent Randall Booker for the opportunity to speak. My name is Elena Babic. I am ESL specialist and former student leader at San Mateo Adult School. And today I would like to share my experience and explain why our campus and this location is important to our adult school students. When I was a newcomer, someone recommended San Mateo Adult School to me, emphasizing this is not only English language learning, this is also become a part of community. And as a student, school leader, I made a lot of friendship with people from different countries, explore a lot of various of different cultures, made a lot of connection, learn about the United States, about local community, advocacy, and our student council is even gifted outdoor tables for our school, providing students with more opportunity to spend time outdoors, which is beneficial for their well-being and helps build community connections. As a parent of Hillsdale High School graduate, I want to highlight how important our adult school for immigrant parents. As a student leader, I was a good example and support for my son. Also, that's why I'm happy, I'm glad that our school building a connection with partnership with DELAC. We are planning to educate our students how to be more involved in their children's life. And just yesterday, one of our students, who is also a parent of an 11th grade in a Burlingame High, attended the LAC meeting. As an ESL specialist, in contact with many adult school students, I would also to share that
I'm
a
sorry,
large of number.
can you start wrapping up your comment? I'm sorry, it's almost 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. A large of number of our students commute by bicycle and by walking. Also, they don't have, a lot of students don't have an access to the internet and possibility to check our school website. So after break, if they want to come back to school, they just come to school to receive re-enrollment information.
Mhm.
In summary, this campus is essential because it's accessible, familiar, and support both student well-being and community building efforts.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
comment. Thank you. If we could stick to the 3 minutes, that would be great, so everybody could get a chance. And you know what I will do is at the 30-second mark, I'll say 30 seconds, okay? So can we have the next speaker? Thank you very much.
Natalia Plitnik. I don't know if I hope I said that right.
Thank you. My name is Natalia Plitnik, and thank you, Board President Lihe and President Robert Griffin and Terry Chavez and Jennifer Jacobson, Greg Land, and Superintendent Randall Booker for their opportunity to speak. My name is Natalia Plitnik. I'm mother of 3 sons, and I'm student of San Mateo Adult School, and also I'm a student ambassador here. You know, when I moved to the USA, first 5 months I spent at home. I didn't have community, and I didn't have opportunity to communicate it with somebody here. And when in January 2022, I started my study here, I was so happy. It was like fresh breath for me. And here I find my new family. I can I can tell this is my new family, and I found friends here. And after some months, when I studied here, I could to help my my little kids with study in their school, because they are students of Burlingame McKinley School, and I have my big son. He's here with me, and he supports me in my education and in my learning new language. And I will so appreciate you if our school will stay at the same place, because I don't yet have my own car, and I walk every day here, and this is like some exercises for me too. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
And Anquina Ehunia. I destroyed that name. I am so sorry. Can you tell me how to pronounce it? Oh, that's a fantastic name.
Yeah.
You said it way better than me.
Thank you. I can start? Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Board President Ligia Andrea Zunja, Robert H. Griffin, Terry Chaves, and Jennifer Jacobson, Greg Land, and Superintendent Randall Booker for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you. My name is Evgenia Ananina, and I'm a student and ambassador of the San Mateo Adult School. And today I want to express my immense gratitude and support for the school. This school helped me dream come true. I got into college and I am pursuing a career in graphic designer. Thanks to people who work here, the administration and Teachers at the school don't just do their job. They truly care for each student with great attention. This school helped me become a full member of the community, where I feel constant support and care. I would love to see this school expand because there are not enough spots for all those who need help to establish themselves in society. By helping people like me, this school gives society as whole the opportunity to grow and contributes greatly to country's development. Please, don't take away someone's chance to fulfill their dream. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next up, we have Eric Love.
We need a more accessible microphone.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Board President, Vice President, Board Trustee, Superintendent Randall Booker for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eric Love. I am in a pre-GD class at Space. I'm originally from Oakland. 9 years ago, I had an automobile accident and put me in this wheelchair. And because I couldn't work any longer, I choose to further my education. I've been attending the pre-G class since January 2024. I enjoyed this campus and because it is wheelchair accessible. Moving this campus or my class to another location will make a negative impact on my education because I take public transportation. I plan my day around public transportation so I can get to class, to the library, and to my tutoring sessions on time. Moving to campus will be a big hardship and inconvenience for me because it will change my daily routine. I would also have to navigate new sidewalks, curbs, doors, and ramps just to get there. Accessible restrooms are also a necessity. These are all the things I consider every day just to live my life. It isn't just a matter of picking up a new location and getting there. Going forward, I strongly urge the board to consider my lived experience and the experience of others when making choices that impact this school. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and my opinions.
Thank you.
The last comment card I have is from Gleb Plitnick.
So thank you for you to give me the opportunity to speak. I'm not the student of San Mateo Adult School, but I'm son of Natalia Plitnik, who is the student of San Mateo Adult School. So the main reason that when I want to talk to you, it's this school is have a really good location because it takes about like just 30 minutes to walk to here. Because for example, I don't have an opportunity to bring my mother here because I have the car now. But in the morning I have college, and after college I need to go to work. So I'm usually at home about like 8 p.m. So for example, I don't have the opportunity to bring my mother here. And you know, when we came here, like for the first, I think about like 8 months, my mom didn't even speak English. But when she started to go to the school, she got like really good classes. And the main reason that she started to speak English, she started to communicate with other people, you know, like she made a lot of friends here. Like she told me a lot about this school, how she liked this, how she likes these classes, like all about her new friends. Because you know how it's hard for the like person who came here. For me, for example, it was easier because I finished the San Mateo High School and now I'm student of San Mateo Community College. So I think for the young people, it's much easier to learn English or make some friends, because for the adults, it's much more harder. So, and for example, I usually can see how my mother tried to help my little brothers, like she tried to help him with their homework, but sometimes like because they're one of them in the 4th grade and one of them in the 2nd grade, and now they can they can help her with her homework, you know, like so. I think it's not a good position for the adult, you know, like when the kids try to help like their parents with their homework. So I think like that the class is like is really helpful, and when I brought my parents here for the first time, I think in the next first like 15 minutes they met like new friends, and I think my mother still have friends here from she met them in the first day at school, so they continue to communicate, and they have a really good like relationship between each other.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Going once? Okay, anybody on Zoom?
There are none.
No?
So President
Yes.
Andrade Zuniga, just a point of order. I know I have superintendent comments coming up later in the board agenda, but in a couple of items, but if I could, I'd like to respond, not that we can have a back and forth, but I want to clarify information, but that's just with permission from the board. I can wait until superintendent.
Point of order. So again, comments from this
Right.
part are not supposed to be commented on. Not that we wouldn't love to comment, but we're
Right.
not allowed to.
Right.
Then I'll wait till superintendent announcements.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you want
Okay.
to stick around.
Yeah,
For a few
he
minutes.
will have some comments. Okay, going on, nobody else to speak? Okay, we will move on to governing board comments. Do any of the trustees have any comments? Trustee Chavez?
Thank you. Many of our students and parents and trustees attended the open houses that we just had recently, and they're exciting. I dropped by Mills High School. A lot of excited parents and a lot of students helping out, volunteering. I was so proud of the students. They were out there greeting parents, helping them find the right buildings, and there was even a bingo game. I didn't play that, but I think vote for the best teacher door. I'm not really sure who won, but I just wanted to give a shout out to all the students and teachers and staff who helped facilitate the open houses. And then what's that?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So open house, I guess. Yeah, it's open house. Yeah. Or back to school night. Sorry about that.
School night.
Yeah, back to school.
It's been a long day for me. So I
It's okay.
apologize.
It's
So
okay.
just two other.
It's okay.
Open houses later.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was back to school night. And I wrote the wrong notes here. See? Two other things real quickly. Last night, I wanted to give a shout out to the Citizens Oversight Committee. We had a construction tour. Mr. Yancey Hawkins and Ms. Jasmine Andrade, they do an excellent job of keeping everybody in line and visiting the different school sites to look at the progress that's been made over the past, I would say the past 12 months. Excellent work going on in all of our schools. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that today I attended the second meeting of the Educator Housing Task Force, and I thought that was really great. The members of that I'm on that committee, and it's great. We have Foster City leaders, mayor, vice mayor, county supervisor Noelia Corzo, and County Superintendent Nancy McGee is part of that. And there's two board members from San Mateo Foster City School District. And they also had staff members there. And I think it was just great. We had a presentation from the Luluzano firm regarding the Teacher Housing Act and also some assembly bills we went through. And I just think that's a great way to look at our workforce housing. So I just want to share those couple of things. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Trustee Griffin?
Yeah, I just want to weigh in on back to school night at Burlingame. And I thought, and I didn't understand because I thought at one point the trustees were going to meet there or
Yeah.
something.
With the music thing.
And I was there at the music thing, enjoying myself without all the rest of you
I was
trustees.
there.
What,
I was there at the music concert.
I'm sorry I missed you.
Yeah, I was there. And we went to the music room after.
Okay, it was room 1.
Yes, I was
And then the
there.
other thing, and I don't know, that, you
We
know,
missed each other.
that was the evening, and I called the superintendent because that was the evening they had that horrible pedestrian.
Oh, right.
And it made me late. But the other thing, I sat through a guided studies class, and it was really interesting to, to hear as a parent, the perspective that the services that guided studies offers to the parents and students there at Burlingame. And if you haven't, I wasn't that familiar with it. And I thought I learned a lot. So if you have the opportunity, you probably ought to, sit through it. I see Principal Land here. He knows everything about everything. So he's got a head start on.
He's gonna have a clue
Anyway.
about it.
Those are my comments.
Thank you. Trustee Land.
So for the record, I was late and I missed the music thing.
I know.
And I even got texted by President Ligia Andrade Zuniga. And so I was running late because of being a principal. Was way late at several meetings before that. So anyway, but I did get to duck in and go walk around a little bit because it's right in my backyard. So I did walk around. It literally is in my backyard. So yeah. Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. You can park on my street.
No parking.
Anyway, I'm just going to say, unfortunately, I've been late and missing a few meetings, but I do want to comment on something that, as being a principal of one of the feeder schools that go into our district, I am so impressed with Assistant Superintendent Kemke and Director Brian Simmons, who sets up all these articulation meetings to work with us. And I just have my hats off to them for all the work that they do to try to bring us together, because that's not something that's easy. We're not a unified school district. So as a result, you have these independent organizations trying to get together to kind of communicate. And they are really doing a great job trying to make sure that happens on a regular basis. So my kudos to them. So
They're
that's
pretty
my
amazing.
comment for today.
Great. And Trustee Jacobson.
I'll just say I was not at the music thing because I had soccer practice and then Hillsdale back to school night. So I was at the Hillsdale back to school night. I did see Lehia there and it was wonderful.
I know.
She had a busy night and it was great. Students were there. They had a barbecue ahead of time to raise money for the junior class. And there was a water polo game going on. It was a wonderful night. And I'm just very grateful that the schools put this on, because at the high school level, it's really rare for parents to get in the classroom and to just be in the space and see what's on the walls and see who the teacher is that your kid is spending all this time with. And it's really helpful. And I was really impressed with all the teachers, and it was a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'll give my comments. First, I wanted to do the land acknowledgement. And this was written by some of our Cappuccino students a few years ago. And it says, and I've changed it a little bit, but not much. Our community acknowledges that all of our campuses lie on the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. The Ramaytush are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula, whose land was stolen from them and whose native language was lost because of Spanish colonization. As settlers on the stolen land of the peninsula, we should be alongside the Ramaytush, remembering and honoring their ancestors and relatives. We thank the first people, the Ramaytush Ohlone, for taking care of the land we now use for education and activities. Our responsibility of caring for the earth is unique and personal to each of us, but should be rooted in allyship with the Ramaytush Ohlone, so we can work together to protect and preserve the land for future generations. I wanted to just say how excited I am to have our new student board reps with us. Yay, we've been waiting for y'all. So welcome and thank you so much for your service to your school district. I also was at back to school night at Burlingame. I went to the music concert. And yes, I did. I missed my colleagues. I went to the Peninsula back to school night. Unfortunately, I had just missed the ending of it, but it was nice to chat with the staff. And then I went over to Hillsdale just to visit there, and it was great. Yes, I saw Trustee Jacobson and her family, and I met some really neat folks that were now taking over the foundation. So that was kind of cool. Let's see. I guess the only thing else I want to say is to please vote. It's very important this election season to vote. It is your voice. And there are many different items on the ballot that are affecting our schools. So please do your homework on that because it's really important for some of our schools to get the funding that they need. Not necessarily in just our district, but in the districts that surround us. There are some districts that don't get as much funding. And I also just wanted to think about all of the folks that are going through war right now in our world, especially our young people, because this affects them and it'll affect their futures. So I wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you. And that's it. Those are all my comments. We can go on to communications to the Board of Trustees. Superintendent Booker, any communications?
None this evening.
Okay. Recognitions.
Same, none this evening.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that the trustees would like to pull tonight? Do we have, what about okay, great. All right. Any items to be pulled? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion for approving the consent agenda. as
Okay,
I
is.
second that.
okay, motion by trustee Land and second by trustee Chavez. Student board representatives, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, we will move on to, let's see.
So just quickly on a point of order there, at this point with that consent agenda, we have 3 proclamations on the agenda and our student board reps just have some summaries to read with them. Would that be okay if they read those summaries at this time?
Yeah, should we do it during their comment?
It's totally up to you.
Yeah, maybe we can do it. That way it could be all together and you don't
Okay.
have to stop. That's
Great.
good. Okay. All right, we will move on to report of the superintendent.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I have a couple of things I want to address, but the first one, because we have audience members here that brought up some public comment items about our San Mateo adult school program. Let me just say, we're not moving the adult school program anywhere. I'm actually a little baffled as to where that's coming from. It's not going anywhere. It's in the Smart Center. It's surrounding that particular part of campus over there. You'll see on the agenda tonight, though, we do have a contract on the agenda where we are looking to enter into an agreement with the San Bruno City Park School District, like we did last year, to rent some of their space, their classroom space, because we're expanding. From my understanding and talking with Director Angela Taylor, we have over 4,000 students that we support, adult students that we support through adult education, and we want to support more. And as we look to support more, we are going to need more space. And what we've done in the past, from my understanding, this is prior to my time here, but we have utilized space in other portions of San Mateo, Foster City, San Bruno, and more areas of our surrounding area. That's not to say, though, if we do utilize those spaces that we're getting up and leaving 200 yards from here or whatever it is, there's no moving of that space. That's adult school space, adult school is staying. But as our programs expand, as we have more students, which I'm hoping we do, we will need auxiliary spaces like we had in the past prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, like I just said, we had spaces that we're using all over the county. We have an agreement tonight, just like last year, to use San Bruno City Park space to better support our adult community members in San Bruno. So just really clear, thank you for your impassioned plea. I appreciate that. Let me also say, if there were plans to move, it would have to be a major discussion with this governing body. I would not be able to unilaterally do that. I'd have to bring plans, rationale, fiscal impact. It would cost millions of dollars. This board would have to approve
Yeah, we
it.
wouldn't just let them.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen that way. So it would need a tremendous amount of conversation over a long period of time. So I just want to thank you for coming, and I really appreciate the words you said about our adult education program. I'm glad you're taking part. I'm glad that it's supporting you. And we may have to expand, and that would be a good thing, actually. That would just means we are supporting more adult learners in our community. Okay, so there's adult education. Housing task force, I really appreciate you bringing that up, but I want to assure our community that's not our housing task force. That's the San Mateo Foster City School District's housing task force. So as I have like DTA members and CSEA members in the audience, adult ed members in the, they may be like, why weren't we invited? Not our task force. So that's San Mateo Foster City, and I'm glad they're doing it. That's really good, and I'm glad
It's a
we
good
were invited to
idea.
participate.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Maybe. All right, back to school night. Back to school night was incredible. I spent the entirety of my time over at San Mateo High School. I got to walk in almost every single classroom throughout the evening, and I was just so impressed with our educators and how many parents were there, and how many student representatives and support staff were there, and it's just amazing. And our campuses look great. Thank you to our maintenance and operation crews. They just were just spotless and just happy faces. And I got to play drums with the jazz band there, and it was just great. It was just a lot of smiles. So I really appreciate everyone's hard work to make back to school night come to be. A couple of other things I just want to list out here. I want to acknowledge 2 upcoming holidays in the Jewish calendar and their importance to the members of our community who observe them. I talk about this every single year. This year, the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah are observed by Jewish people from sundown on Wednesday, October 2nd, through sundown on Saturday, October 4th. And Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year. It's the Jewish New Year, and it's a time of inner renewal and atonement. Also, this year, Yom Kippur will be observed beginning at sundown on Friday, October 11th until the evening of Saturday, October 12th. It's a day of atonement and is one of the holiest days of the year for the Jewish people. Yom Kippur completes the annual period known in Judaism as the High Holy Days, and students and staff observing these holidays may be absent on the days following nighttime celebrations, and we as a district will be supportive to the needs of these individuals. My last 2 things, which we talked about actually at our last board meeting, but we're in the acknowledgement month, and that is September is Suicide Prevention Month, and right now it's National Hispanic Heritage Month. So just celebrating those. And I was over at Aragon High School this afternoon, and the amount of flags and decorations they have celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month was pretty incredible. And I'm sure other campuses are doing the same, but I was just over at Aragon today and I saw that there. So thank you for giving me the time to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and our students were great. I forgot to mention there was a student at Burlingame that went out of her way to like walk me all the way over to the music room. So they're really sweet. Yeah, thank you. Okay, going on to our student board representatives.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Zoe, and I am a senior attending San Mateo High School. I'm honored to be here tonight as a member of the Student Board Council. I joined the Student Board Council to help ensure that issues affecting students, particularly those that may be difficult to identify and understand from non-student perspectives, are voiced and prioritized at the district level. I'm immensely grateful and excited to spend the rest of the school year working alongside my fellow board council members to do so.
Oh, one sec. Don't talk too fast. Our ASL interpreters are trying to catch up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aisha Faf. I'm a sophomore at Mills High School, and I'm honored to be here as a representative of the Student Board Council. To start off, the reason I wanted to join the Student Board Council was because I am very passionate about creating real change within our schools, especially when it comes to important issues like climate action, inclusivity, and making our campuses a safer place for all students. I will now be giving a report. In our first Student Board Council meeting, we had the opportunity to meet each other and the incredible people who support and guide us within the district, including members of the board and leadership. Afterward, we broke into smaller groups to discuss our goals for this school year. Some of the main topics that came up addressed climate change on our campuses, combating hate speech, and ensuring inclusivity, especially for minority groups. These are issues I deeply care about, and I'm excited to continue working with the council to make meaningful progress on these goals. I'm really looking forward to collaborating with you all to achieve these goals and making this year one of positive change. Thank you for your time and for supporting student voices in this important work. Thank you.
Thank you. Great reports. Did you want to? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so first we have the proclamation for National LGBTQI plus History Month. In October 1979, the first LGBT National March on Washington occurred, marking the 10th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. On October 11th, 1988, the first National Coming Out Day was celebrated. The month of October has been identified to remind all cultures within our wider community of the important roles LGBTQI people have taken in shaping the social, cultural, historical, legal, and political worlds we live in today. Members of the San Mateo Union High School District support the freedoms, rights, and equality of those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and asexual, also known as LGBTQI+. In our district, we believe that all students deserve to feel safe and welcome in their schools, to be known by their preferred name, gender, identity, story, as well as to see themselves represented in the curricula. The San Mateo Union High School District appreciates and recognizes the importance of LGBTQI+ History Month as an effective means of educating and calling action our community members to work together by fighting prejudice and discrimination in their own lives. Increasing visibility, raising awareness, and teaching LGBTQI+ history fosters a welcoming school climate where LGBTQI+ students, families, and educators can live their authentic lives and be treated with dignity and respect.
I'll be giving a summary on the National Disability Employment Awareness Month proclamation. October 2024 marks the 79th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, also known as NDEAM. In the San Mateo Union High School District, we believe that it is important to pay tribute to the accomplishments of people with disabilities, whose work helps keep the nation's economy strong, and we reaffirm our commitment to ensure equal opportunity for all citizens and promote an inclusive workforce. The theme for NDEAM for 2024 is Access to Good Jobs for All. The spirit behind this theme is to confirm a commitment to ensuring disabled workers have access to good jobs every month of every year. The district is grateful for strong partnerships with local employers who offer access to good jobs every month of every year for our students. National Disability Employment Awareness Month is an opportunity to celebrate the employment achievements of our students with disabilities. Our partnerships with local employers and our educators, both certified and classified, for their support of this success and collaboration.
Next will be the proclamation for National Filipino American History Month. The Filipino American National Historical Society declared the year 1988 to be the 225th anniversary of the permanent settlement of Filipinos in the continental United States. This set into motion its year-long national observance to focus on the story of our nation's past from a new perspective by concentrating on the economic, cultural, social, creative, and other notable contributions Filipino Americans had made in countless ways toward the development of the United States history. In 2009, U.S. Congress recognized October as Filipino American History Month in the United States.
In the San Mateo Union High School District, we believe that efforts must continue to promote the study of Filipino American history and culture, mandated in the mission statement of the Filipino American National Historical Society, because the role of the Filipino Americans and those of other people of color have been neglected in the writings, teachings, and learnings of United States history. The San Mateo Union High School District has an important role to commit to educating students and the larger community about the history, traditions, and diversity of the Filipino American community. And we encourage our community to honor Filipino American history and culture in October and throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, we've come a long way with Disability Employment Awareness Month. Our country has come a long way from having people with disabilities working in, these factories making buttons all day to now being able to work in just other places like different, law firms and as teachers and in whatever they want to do. There's different programs out there like the Work Incentive Program through Social Security that will work with their benefits so they don't lose their benefits, and it tells them how many hours they can work for how much hourly rates. And it just there's a lot of more robust protections for folks with disabilities. So it's neat. So thank you for your proclamations. Yes.
I just want to say this is a great way to highlight
Yeah.
our proclamations. You were both excellent, and it really highlighted the core points that each of those proclamations. So instead of just reading it through, you really highlighted the elements and really appreciate that. So both of you, great job.
Thank you.
The historical
Thank you.
context is really important. So thank you. Mhm. Okay, we'll go on to report of the District Teachers Association, Ms. Lauderdale. Well, it's something new.
So, I mean, it's on. There we go.
Yes, good.
Awesome. Good evening, President Draje Zuniga, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Booker, district leaders, and our student board members. Y'all are so rad. It's so cool that you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Before I get to my planned comments, and I know this is not a usual use of time, but you mentioned the accident that happened on back to school night. And I'm not sure if you all received more information about the accident, but the community member that was killed in the pedestrian accident was the mother of a Hillsdale graduate and a part of our Bay Academy, and who is now at our adult program at Burlingame High School. I had the honor of working with Stephanie, our student, in the Best Buddies program at Hillsdale, and she's just absolutely wonderful. Her energy is full of life, light, and kindness. And sadly, she lost her father 2 years ago as well. And so now her aunt plans to have Stephanie join her family for the rest of her life. And there's a GoFundMe to support her through this really tragic time if anybody's interested. Now on to my normally planned comments. And if Stephanie's listening, we're here for you, baby. So I appreciate the chance to speak with you. It's been a really long time since being in front of you in person and having the opportunity to speak. Usually it's Craig. And I'm just really excited that you all vote on our tentative agreement tonight. It is always a moment of celebration when our phenomenal bargaining team and the district come to an agreement that uplifts our educators' needs. I have to remember to talk slow too.
Yes,
I talk so fast. Yeah. It's a teacher thing, I think. It's important to remember that our teaching and working conditions are our students' learning conditions. The more sustainable our teaching and working conditions, the more we can provide for our students. We live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and it's important that our educators can focus on improving their practices instead of worrying about whether they will have enough money to pay rent or pay for groceries. The 4% raise is not merely a number in the contract. For some, it's a difference between thriving and surviving, the difference between staying in our community or leaving. I think of a teacher in our district who has 3 children who reached out to me to ask when our association hoped to have the deal finalized because she's depending on the raise to help raise her family. Or the young teacher who has 4 roommates to afford rent and live close enough to work in our district. Our educators deserve the chance to thrive in the communities we work in. Likewise, the reduction in our counselor caseload isn't just an arbitrary number in a contract. I often think of our counselors who will write hundreds of letters of recommendation in the next month, meet with students to plan for their next steps, and support their students who are struggling academically and emotionally. The fewer students on their caseloads mean that they can put in more time and attention to the students they meet with and make lasting impacts on our young people. Our goal as a district is to be more humanizing towards our students through our relationships, pedagogy, and practices. I hope we continue to take the same approach with our educators. It is humanizing to work in a profession that is sustainable, to be respected as experts in our content areas, and to be trusted by our board, our administrator, and our community members. When our jobs are more sustainable, we are able to take care of ourselves, our families, and our students. We can be more humanizing because we're also treated like humans. Remember, when you approve our contract tonight, it's not just about the numbers or the money. It's about creating relationships between the district and our educators that is humanizing, uplifting, and sustainable. Again, working and teaching conditions are our students' learning conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the CSEA, Chapter 519 Representative, Mr. Brewer. Hello, welcome.
Pedagogy? I had to Google it. Hello, everybody. Sorry, thank you for your help to get me here today. Good evening, President Zuniga, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Booker, District Representatives, and Student Board Representatives. You guys did a great job. Very good. This is my first time talking, so you did really good. Where am I at? Okay. I want to thank those who are in attendance and those who are watching on Zoom. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Dale Brewer. I am the new CSEA Chapter 519 President, and I am honored to be here tonight to represent the over 500 CSEA members in our San Mateo Union High School District. First thing, I bring to you the news that in our meeting earlier this evening, we unanimously passed and voted the ratification of the opening agreement that you are presenting to the board tonight. Thanks to both negotiating teams for a job well done. I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. Again, my name is Dale Brewer. I'm a proud Cappuccino High School graduate, class of 1990. Past Superintendent Sam Johnson was my principal. I have two children that graduated from CAP, and then my third child is currently a senior at Cappuccino High School. Go Mustangs. I'm a union-trained electrician from the IBW, Local 617 here in San Mateo. And just this month, I celebrated my 20th year here with the school district. I am a SMUHSD lifer. I'm a product of this district. I'm a voter. I'm a taxpayer. And I, like my over 500 CSEA brothers and sisters, am a steward of these students, faculties, and facilities. In future meetings, I look forward to sharing with you detail who we, CSEA, are and what we do to allow this district to run not just smoothly, but to thrive. For example, CSEA drove you around last night when you were going on your tour. Joanne? Yeah, she's good. And as we meet here tonight, CSEA is cleaning our facilities throughout the district, making sure the grounds are safe. CSEA set up this room, and when we leave here tonight, CSEA will remain and prepare it for tomorrow's functions. Right now, CSEA is securing our multi-million-dollar buildings to assure that our children have a safe and aesthetically pleasing environment in which to return tomorrow. CSEA is the backbone of our district. That is why we believe that when superintendent says that we are all educators, he really includes us in that, and we appreciate that. I look forward to CSEA working closer with the district to help us both achieve our goals today and for a better tomorrow for our students, families, and coworkers. Of course, I hit the wrong button. Give me a second. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
And coworkers. Like Superintendent Booker likes to say, here at San Mateo Union High School Districts, we're 10 cities, 6 schools, 1 district, and 1 strong CSEA. Thank you very much for your time. God bless you.
Great report. Wow. Thank you. All right. Report of the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association.
Good evening. I have a folder for the 5 trustees. I'm sorry I did not bring one for the student trustees. Next time we will be more well prepared.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Board President Ligia Andrade Zuniga, Vice President Robert Griffin, members Terry Chavez, Jennifer Jacobson, Greg Land, and our student board members, and Superintendent Randall Booker for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name, excuse me, my name is Kelly Underwood Rasmus, and I'm representing the CFT Union and the staff of San Mateo Adult and Career Education. This evening, we would like to share with you some updates from our campus. You don't need to look in your folder yet. I'll tell you when, I mean, you can, but I'm not saying anything relevant to that yet. First, I would just like to talk about the positive momentum and collaboration that's happening on our campus. We've seen increased teacher involvement with administrative tasks. Our current ESL coordinator, Lisa Sparks, and Kira Mann were at the helm and in collaboration with our lead teachers to complete the first drafts of the FPM audit outlines. So those are nearing completion. And our high school diploma and GED first draft outlines are complete. And the career education first outlines are also complete. So we're moving closer with our FPM audit outline completion. We have continued collaboration with our career building partners. Tomorrow we have a career fair with Job Train that will be from 1 to 3 o'clock on our campus. Job Train is an excellent organization in the community that helps many of our students and other community members find jobs here. We also are collaborating with NovaWorks from San Francisco Airport for resume building and interview preparation. Secondly, and this is where the folder comes in, I'd like to highlight some SMACE statistics. As you'll note in the fact sheet, the beautiful colored fact sheet, one of the first things we'd like to highlight was that our student enrollment for the last school year was 3,828 students. And supporting that student body, we had a staff comprised of 43 certificated instructors, some part-time, some full-time, classified in-house support staff of 24, and making a total employee count of 67 at the adult school. On the back page of that fact sheet, please note our student achievements and academic performance based on the Comprehensive Adult Student Achievement System, which we like to call CASAS. Our ASC program is showing continued growth in the past couple years, but our target is to achieve pre-pandemic levels of enrollment and graduation. We still are working on increasing our program growth in the high school diploma and GED sector. Also note that in our ESL department, we have a continued significant increase from 2021 to the present in both our civics assessments and in students obtaining citizenship. And in our career education department, we're showing a healthy overall achievement rate of 80% in the career ed program. And the career education program is also a program that we are really pushing to grow at the adult school. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to address our union and staff concerns about the Bridge Academy sharing our campus and the possibility of building a permanent home for the Bridge Academy on the adult school campus. The first concern that we have is that of space. The enrollment at the adult school continues to increase. As you saw on the fact sheet, our enrollment last year was 3,828 students. Not only is our enrollment increasing, but we are also increasing offerings in our career education classes. This requires more classrooms. However, since the Bridge program started sharing our campus, we have gradually lost classrooms each year. Bridge Academy is now housed in 6 adult school classrooms with their current enrollment at 60 students. I currently teach an ESL class, English to speakers of other languages. I teach it in the morning to students at the high intermediate level. Prior to the pandemic, our school had 2 sections of both low and high intermediate classes in the morning. We would like currently to open another section of these classes, but there are no classrooms available to us at this point. There is a great demand for adult ESL classes in our district. 3 times each school year, when our registration opens, we turn away hundreds of immigrants eager to learn English. I have heard from multiple students in my class who had tried to register 2 or 3 times before they were admitted to an intermediate level class. One student in my class reported that her friend has tried 4 different times to register for an intermediate level class, but has been turned away each time. In my current class of 45 students, only 1 new student was enrolled this term. That means that only 1 student from the entire San Mateo Unified District at the intermediate level was allowed to enter school at the adult school because of impaction. All the other 44 students were returning students who had studied the previous term at the adult school. As you can see on our fact sheet, our ESL program last year enrolled just short of 3,000 students. In the morning, we have a total of 11 classrooms available to us for instructing ESL students. We need those other 6 classrooms that are currently being used by the Bridge Academy. My second concern about Bridge Academy being permanently housed on the adult school campus is one of fiscal responsibility. The adult school serves a large community of students with a very meager budget. As many of you know, our funding has never returned to what we had before the Great Recession of 2008. So that means we are currently operating in 2024 with a budget that is less than what we had in 2008. However, before the Bridge program moved to our campus, we had sufficient space to serve our students. This is thanks to the frugality of such school directors as Stuart Diamond, Larry Teixeira, and Tim Doyle. They saved enough money from our adult school funds to build the Smart Center and our current classrooms. Now, we do need to expand due to our increasing enrollment, but we do not have the extra funds to build new classrooms. And regarding the expansion into the San Bruno City Park School District, I was a teacher in the San Bruno City Park School District for the adult school. I taught at Bellhaven Elementary in San Bruno, which is part of their district. I was a ESL teacher there for the adult school. It was a very isolating experience, not just for me, but for the 8 or 9 students that attended my class. They became friends with each other, but they were not exposed to the community events and the other services that are available at our main campus. Our school used to also have a satellite campus at a church in Foster City. We were then kicked out of that church. We moved to a church in San Bruno, and the rent became too high for us to pay, so that's why we left. These satellite campuses, in my opinion, are not a good option because we rely on the availability of other school districts or other organizations. We are the first one to leave when they need their space. And also, if they increase our rent, we cannot afford that, again, as I mentioned, due to our meager budget. Our proposal, or one proposal that the superintendent brought before our staff, was that of building a new building for the Bridge Academy in the open space on our campus that I mentioned before, or actually that I'm going to mention next, sorry. This would return our 6 classrooms to us, which would be wonderful, and it would provide the space we need to expand. However, due to the quality of the land in that space, it would be quite expensive to build a new building to house the Bridge Academy. Mr. Booker mentioned spending the $85 million received from the sale of the Crestmore High School property toward the new building. In my mind, $85 million is too great an expense for a school with a current enrollment of 60 students. My final concern is about providing a safe, healthy, and welcoming environment for the immigrant students in our district. Immigrant students face many challenges upon arriving in a new country. Many are fleeing traumatic experiences, and almost all of them face a sense of isolation. Our adult school campus, though small, provides an environment where teachers and students can create a sense of community and belonging. In our courtyard and garden space, students gather at break time and for lunch hour to converse in their native language and build friendships they so greatly need. Teachers organize parties, picnics, raffles, and garden projects that also build a sense of community. If the district decides to build a permanent home for the Bridge Academy on the adult school campus, that healthy community building environment could be all but destroyed. We will no longer have the space to gather together for celebrations and activities that so greatly benefit our students. Not only that, but we will also have a permanent mingling of minor and adult students, which may not be the best situation for the Bridge Academy. In conclusion, I am here to request that the district find a different property for the new permanent Bridge Academy building. In a large district such as ours that owns vast amounts of property near the El Camino Real and San Mateo Avenue corridors, I think we can find an excellent permanent home for the Bridge Academy, one that is near public transit, easily accessible, and offers the amenities of a comprehensive high school. And while each of our comprehensive high schools is experiencing declining enrollment, we have heard no discussion about the permanent Bridge Academy on any other campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to special reports and appearances. Superintendent Booker, are there any special reports?
Yes, sorry. This evening, we have our spotlight on student learning. This is on our academic progress, CASP exam, CAS 10th graders on track. And I just want to, before I introduce Dr. Kemke and Mr. Simmons, excuse me, just want to acknowledge how much work they put into this presentation, even spending most of the day, because I met with them this morning and said, could we add this, that, and the other? And it's really fantastic. So thank you so much, both of you, for jumping on it. This is, as an old colleague of mine used to say, this is a presentation with both belts and suspenders. So you did a really good job. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it off.
Good evening. Yeah, thank you for allowing us to have the time to talk through all the belt and suspenders related to CASP. So this is our first spotlight on student learning. The first of many of the presentations aligned to our LCAP. This one focuses on the students' progress on the CASP, like Superintendent Booker said. It also will look at our on-track status for our current 11th graders. It looks at what classes where they were on track at the end of their 10th grade year, and then we'll look at that state testing results. And we also have included some data related to CASP that we'll talk about as we move through the presentation. So just as a reminder, we have 3 goals for the LCAP, the first one being safe and connected community. A lot of these actions and metrics will be covered later in this year. Tonight, we're really focusing on goal 2, which is around humanizing education, where our metrics are on-track data for graduation, the CASP and the CAS data, so the 2 state tests. The final goal is empowering staff. There'll be a presentation later about professional learning later this year. So tonight, we're focusing on goal 2. And again, here's another visual of the same information, basically, of the 3 goals and the data that we look at for them and when we're presenting it to the board. So you'll see under safe and connected communities, you'll see one in October, March, and June for that goal. Tonight, we're going to be talking about humanizing education, where we're looking at a lot of the CASP and on-track data. That also includes the English learner progress, which will be covered in November, and then the graduation rates that we usually cover in January. And these are all generally based on when the state releases the data. We're a little bit out ahead of like final results tonight. I'll say that the results we're looking at for CASP are preliminary, but they don't generally change. All right, moving on. I'm going to pass it to Director Simmons to start looking at some of that data.
No. Turn it on, Brian. Don't turn it off and then expect it to work. Good evening. Nice to see you all, Board President Andrade Zuniga and board members. So just quickly, this is the sophomores on track data. As you know, we've had this metric for quite some time. We see this as an early indicator, leading indicator, if you will, of student graduation, right? We want to know. So basically, the big idea here is that, pretty simply, we say you need to earn about 60 credits a year, right, to get to 220. And that gives you a little bit of wiggle room because that would give you 240. So the goal is, these are the cut points that we use and sort of the terminology we use to determine when a student is slightly off track, moderately off track, or really off track. And so we're really targeting students in the 11th grade there. This is students at the end of 10th grade and kind of where they are. So broadly speaking, and we tend to give you this data in longitudinal fashion just to give you some context and see sort of how are we doing over time, as opposed to just giving you a single, shot. In general, our data continues to be flat overall, but, and some persistent predictable gaps in outcomes around, that we see across, unfortunately, all metrics really. So on this particular slide, you'll see the dotted line is always the sort of average across the district. And then you'll see specific targeted subgroups that we pull out because of their size. And so this is our key racial and ethnic subgroup display. The one thing I think I'll call out here is Latino and Pacific Islander subgroups are above where they were before the pandemic, but they still lag their counterparts. This is then what we call, and again, you'll see this in a few slides always. We have two ways of dividing our sort of special populations or demographics of students. So there's race and ethnicity, and then simultaneously we take students across the racial and ethnic demographic groups, and they show up as socioeconomically disadvantaged students with IEPs, that's students with disabilities, multilingual learners, and a new subgroup that's just been newly added officially at the state level is this group called long-term English learners. So this is students who've been, there's a little bit of debate over this term, but currently it's 7+ years in U.S. public schools. So that's the sort of formal definition of a long-term English learner. That number has grown over the last couple of years, which is interesting in and of itself, meaning that the number of years that you need to be in the country or in U.S. public schools to be a long-term English learner has actually lengthened officially. So anyway, the point is that's a group that we'll be tracking officially. So on the California dashboard, on all of our metrics, you will start seeing long-term English learners as a unique subgroup. So they are also a subset of our multilingual learners. So again, these are students who have been here for many years and they've never been redesignated as English fluent, right? That's sort of the difference. That's the key, defining feature of that group. And so, this group, this slide basically shows you some of the same kinds of gaps. Again, these students are duplicated, just to be clear, with the previous slide, right? So they're separate many of the students all the students who are in the previous slide are actually in this slide, but they're organized around these various subgroups. It's a little bit confusing and complicated, but and in order to make it clear, it sometimes gets confusing because we don't want to duplicate students in the total. But again, you see some of the same persistent gaps, and honestly, we're very concerned because our prime directive as a district is around every student graduating, and we see so at the beginning of 11th grade year, under 60% of a couple of our key subgroups are not on track for graduation. So broadly speaking, we still see, a relatively, 90% of students are on track for graduation. That's the good news. Asian and white students continue to exhibit really high rates of on-track status. Essentially all of them are on track with a few exceptions. We've seen some significant improvement for Pacific Islander students. Again, I'll say with that subgroup, as I often do with our small subgroups of students, they are because of the size of the cohort, they can kind of go up and down a bit because of, a few students can make a significant difference versus, Latino students in the district. There's hundreds in a particular class, right? 600 or 700. So we still see Latino student lag in the data. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged students continue to lag their counterparts, our multilingual learners. Most distressingly, again, because our long-term English learners they've been here for a long time. Many of them have actually been born in the United States. And the reason that they're just to remind us all why they're English learners is because when their families enrolled them in school in whatever grade it was, they put a language other than English as their home language. And so then warrants that they have to pass the English language proficiency exam to be redesignated. It's an important sort of defining feature of why a student is an English learner. It's one thing I think we all understand newcomers who just newly come to the district, but it's a little more complicated with long-term English learners. As a district, we are doing a lot of work we stand behind a whole lot of people in the district who do a whole lot of things to try to redress our on track status. I mean, from our vantage point in the instruction department at the district office, we're very much focused on creating humanizing spaces in our classrooms. We've spent a lot of time talking to you all about what humanizing pedagogy is, and it's all kind of codified now in our new framework. We're spending a lot of time really enrolling staff in that framework. One of the key indicators that we're seeing upstream when students are not passing classes is that they don't come to school consistently. And so chronic absenteeism there's a real direct line between absenteeism and lack of performance, which in many ways, that's good news for us in the sense that we can do something about it if we just get kids to come to school. We have a new strategy, a new intake counselor. One of the things we've noted is that with the increased number of multilingual learners and international students coming into our district, transcript evaluation is incredibly complex. I've seen recently some transcripts from some countries where I'm like, I don't know what those numbers equate to for us, because the system has a very different way of documenting. And some classes are 2 weeks, which we might think are like 6 months or anyway. So it's very confusing. So we have a new intake counselor to really help us broker that early relationship with our newcomers, in particular, when they come. I think it's a really great resource that we're investing in to support, because then they do the warm handoff to our school sites who then see those students through their time. We continue to do significant transcript review and continue to train staff on all this issue of what does this equal and in terms of courses and credit. So the students are really getting credit for what they deserve from their past experience. And then also more importantly, in many ways, they're being placed in the appropriate classes. They're not repeating things. They're not kind of getting forgotten when they take the courses that they take. Because a huge part of credit accumulation is all about just getting, the proper 220 in the proper buckets all filled. And so that's the key piece that requires that transcripts get reviewed regularly. We have annual one-on-one meetings with all students across the district. In the springtime, that's all part of course selection. And that's another spot where there's a moment to sort of individually talk about, okay, I see that you're on track, or I see that you're off track, et cetera. And then on the mitigation / remediation side of things, we continue to offer significant credit recovery options, summer school, on-site credit recovery. So during the school year, we have classes in our schools where students can retake classes that they failed. I will say we even have then kind of the largest version of that, or the most kind of a profound version of that. We offer a non-grad senior summer school, right? So students who don't actually graduate, we support them after they were supposed to have graduated to finish up to 15 credits after their graduation date. And then lastly, we have, there's prior to senior year meetings with 12th graders to kind of really, those who are on, not on track, to make sure they get a grad plan in place early in their senior year. And then lastly, we have, Peninsula, where a student can earn up to 90 credits over the course of the year, given their trimester schedule, which is, significantly more than the comprehensive sites. So that's the sort of big take on our on track status. I'm going to now move us into the sort of results of the state tests. I apologize up front because this is going to get a little in the weeds on some of the data, but I think it's important to make sure you all kind of understand the complexities of this data. So big picture, we as a district, as you know, we offer 2 tests during high school in California, one to 11th graders during the spring in language arts and math, and the other in science after a student takes the third standard course, that basically means senior year, because most of our students complete the third course in their junior year, but we don't administer the exam to them in their junior year because they're taking the other test in their junior year, as well as other tests by other companies that they take in the spring, specifically the College Board and the Advanced Placement Program. So that's why we administer the CAST, this California Science Test, in the spring of their senior year. We would love to do it in the fall of their senior year, actually, but the state doesn't allow the test to be taken before January. So they're really trying to help kids be motivated, get seniors motivated to take a test. So it's really, we continue to lobby when we can, that it would be great if we could offer that test in the fall for seniors, because it would really change, I think, outcomes and engagement with the assessment. But we're really asking seniors to take take an assessment in April, that you can imagine their level of motivation for that. So big picture, we're seeing some of the same kinds of outcomes across the subgroups. Here, some sort of swings. Again, some of these groups are smaller, some of them larger. I think that, broadly speaking, we're concerned about kind of the general, because language arts had sort of always been, as you see kind of in the broad sweep of things, it's always been around the same level, but we're concerned about this dip to 70% overall, and then certainly kind of across the board, kind of how students are doing. Again, this is the second slide of special populations, as I referred to them earlier. And again, you see these same kind of, almost like mirroring, almost parallel lines across the district. And so in general, this is definitely information that we're sharing with staff, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing about that. But again, this is language arts. And in general, language arts, as you've noticed, if you've already taken a look at the presentation, is our students are doing much better in language arts overall than they are in mathematics. And that is true across the state, right? That's not just us. Language arts tends to be going better statewide than math does. So this is just a simple sort of distribution of how the students actually scored across the test. Has sort of four broad areas of designation: standard not met, standard nearly met, standards met, and then standard exceeded. And so you can see how over the course of the last 3 years, the distribution of scores across the four achievement bands. Broadly speaking, the thing that stands out to me is that growth in the standard not met group. That's what's troubling to me about this particular slide. The rest of it, I think, is within kind of it seems fairly static otherwise, with some variation here and there. We're going to go even a little deeper now into this concept that the state came up with a few years ago, which is actually pretty helpful. It's now part of the California dashboard, and part of how your school actually is school and district are measured in terms of growth, right? So then this notion of distance from standard, right? So this idea is, yes, students might not meet the hard target of meeting the standard, right? So if we go back to that previous slide, standard met is the green bar, the green row there, right? That's the bar. And so, yes, maybe not all students have met the bar, but the question is, how far away are they from meeting the bar? And so this chart is just a kind of generic chart to help you kind of understand big picture, that the distance from standard is basically how far students are from the lowest possible score of standard met, right? So standard met in this particular distribution here, well, let me just jump to the next slide, actually. Standard met for this cohort of students is 2582, right? So you have to get a scaled score of 2582 to meet the standard on the 2024 CASP. And so as we said, as you saw earlier, 70% of students met it or exceeded it. And this idea of distance from standard is how far above it and how far below it are you, right? In the number of scale score points that you got. And so I'll jump to this chart. So I don't know how, but my formatting got a little off there. But anyway, the little graphics there on the side. But basically what I was trying to make sure you all could see was, so for all students across the district, our distance from standard above the standard is actually, on average, is for white students is basically the same, right? It's 46.1 versus 46.2. It's essentially the same. But you'll then see on the right-hand column, and I'm not going to go down these individually, but I think you see sort of in ELA, in language arts, like these sort of more red arrows than you actually see green arrows, which I think is, for me, like that's the symbol of like, so even if we're students, like Asian students, for example, are 109 points above the standard, As a group, they actually, though, have gone down year over year, right? And again, this question of, well, what was going on in 21, 22? Now, I will say 21, 22, in general, across the state, you can all remember what was happening in 21, 22. So I take 21, 22 data with a pretty significant grain of salt in terms of, because also students we'd not administered the test in the district to any of our 11th graders for a couple of years. And so these students had not taken these students probably didn't even take a test in 8th grade, these particular juniors. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I think you see, like, to me, the value of this is really looking at the right and seeing, are you seeing a lot of, in a perfect world, you'd see a lot of green arrows, right? Because no matter where students were, we want to see them growing. We want to see their distance from standard growing. We don't want to see it declining, because you should always be compared to your group, right? Or yourself, if you will. So this is the ELA distance from standard for special populations. Again, we talked about what those groups are. Again, I think the good news here is we're seeing a diminution in the distance from standard for students with IEPs in particular. Like, that's one that we're actually going to do some digging into. Like, that's a significant decline in the distance from standard for students with IEPs. So, as well as socioeconomically disadvantaged students from their 21, 22 data. Yeah.
Because it's just pertinent to
this one?
Forward.
That one?
So one of my concerns is, like, when you talk about, it goes back to what you were saying, digging a little deeper. Multilingual learners, are we getting more newcomers in the multilingual? Because then if you have a lot more ones in LPAC than 2s and 3s, that's why you're going to see a deviation, because they're starting at a different, you're starting at no language, no language in English to some language in English. And so is that a factor? Did we,
I think it is a factor. I think we would all agree it's probably a factor.
So
when we look at the demographic, the growth of our multilingual learner population, our newcomer population in particular, I think we're seeing I imagine that's probably has something to do with, when you look at a lot of those charts for multilingual learners, kind of this degradation in their credits, in their CASP scores. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is one more layer deeper. You're gonna get way into the onion here. So this is the achievement level descriptor. So like any test, there's subtests, right? So this is essentially the subtest for the language arts test, right? So you can imagine it's reading, it's listening, it's writing, and it's research and inquiry. Well, it used to be until this year. The state has decided to consolidate these areas into 2 areas. So what I've done on the far right-hand column there, you'll see is that you're like, well, where did the other row go? Well, it's because the state's actually collapsed these 2. And it's actually why I think the results haven't been released yet, is they're figuring out the math on this. So these are definitely preliminary results on the right, the 23-24 data. But when we look in our own system, in our student information system, we did a query and we looked into, how students scored. We were able to pull these numbers. But my sense is they'll be around these numbers of 42% who met the standard, or exceeded the standard in reading and listening. And then in writing and research and inquiry, it was a little higher. Again, because they're combining these, I would not stand by these numbers completely. I think that's really taking what we have in our system.
One clarification.
Yeah.
This data is just for students who have exceeded the standard.
Correct. Thank you for clarifying.
For some reason, the way the state releases the data is that it doesn't have met the standard. It just shows us proficiency based on exceeding the standard. And that's why you see total percentage of students above standard at a lower rate than what we saw as meeting and exceeding the standard in the earlier slides.
That's right. Thank you for clarifying. And they have to have met all these, right? They had to meet or exceed it in all these areas to be in that 43, 33 group. So now I'm going to move on to mathematics. And again, we're going to have plenty of time for questions and dialogue at the end if you have, because I'm sure you will have them. In mathematics, similarly speaking, so now we're talking about the same set of data, just about math. So hopefully the orientation to the data in ELA has given you some basic understanding of what this is all about. So again, our students took the CASP last spring. I will say one big thing is that we had about 94% of students take the test last year. Our sites did a really good job of rounding students up who might have missed the assessment the first 3 times. And so they did a great job of getting kids to take the test. They do a lot of work in the spring to find students and get them to do it. Because, Yeah. Anyway, want to just call that out to all of our CASP administrators at the site level. So yeah, you'll see some of the same kinds of patterns, but in general, it's sort of lower overall level, right? So you sort of see that we don't even have, like, we're not close to 100% or 90% for any of our groups, which is not the same as in ELA. And again, you see, I mean, I think the most troublesome thing overall is just sort of the general degradation of the line, right? The dotted line just kind of goes down to the right. And we're going to talk a little bit about why we think that is, and more work we're going to be doing to try to learn more and more about it. Again, similar patterns with our special populations. Again, I'm going to jump to this slide. So I think we've already talked about what the distance from standard is, but basically in mathematics, it's a different scale score, right? So the number is different, but actually the same, actually, in this case. But the point is that the percentages are obviously different, right? So it's about 46% of students who score, who meet or exceed the standard in math. And so again, this is the one, I think, bright spot in this particular set of data is that many of the arrows, if you will, on the right are green in mathematics. And that's good news, right? Because the idea is that students are actually less far from, or they're further from the standard in in many of our subgroups, right? And so I think that the key here is that there's going to be, and again, like you even see like white students, like there's some fluctuation there that's kind of funky, right? Like it doesn't all completely add up yet, but I do think the pandemic had this kind of jarring effect on the system in many ways, because when you look at this data in like 2017, 18, 19 around math, the numbers are more like they are in 2022, 23. They're not like as wildly off as they are now. So again, I think so that definitely has had an impact on the system. I think none of us would deny that, among many other things. And then this is the special populations data. Again, I think another good sign, 3 green arrows out of 4. I do think, the concern about multilingual learners is there's significant distance from standard, and that math is presumably not as heavy a language issue, right? Now, what I think we know is that a lot of our new multilingual learners, or a lot of our newcomers are underschooled in many cases, and so their level of math proficiency might not be what we'd hope it was, given that they were 15 or 16 years old, but it is what it is. They are who they are. So this is, again, the distribution of the score range reporting. This is that same data we looked at a few minutes ago. So this is just for the students who met proficiency. This is sort of those that did it across this is the scale score range across the 4 achievement bands. I think you're seeing, this is just another display of the data, but it gives you the distribution, like what percentage of kids were, because the longitudinal chart's showing you the data over time, only those who met it or exceeded it. This is the intent of this slide, is to help you understand sort of what's the distribution of student outcomes. I think clearly our goal has got to be, at a minimum, to get students out of that bottom band there, because there are a third of our students were at the bottom band of achievement in mathematics. I think it's almost your turn. I've lost track of what slide I'm on.
I'm not after this slide.
Perfect. So glad. And so then this last one is really about, again, the achievement level descriptors. And again, the state is collapsing the bottom 2 into 1. So take this with a grain of salt. We do see some improvement, I think, in that area. But again, it's a little fuzzy how they're combining those 2 sort of subtests, if you will, achievement level descriptors. So, but I think generally speaking, and just to be really transparent and clear, the purpose of this information is really the teacher information, right? This is the kind of stuff that can help teachers make some decisions about what they do and how they do it with regard to supporting student need, as they dig into sort of the details. And there's some actually even more detailed information that CAS provides us that we're really going to spend some time looking at this fall, given where we are. I'll hand it back to Dr. Kemke.
All right. Once we started looking at the data, we began to realize that we really need to dig a little bit further into what's going on with our 11th grade math. So one of the things that we looked at was the grades the course that the students are taking when they're in 11th grade. So this is the course that they're enrolled in the year that they take the CASP test. So the first 3 courses on here, the multilingual math, so that's the ML math class, ML algebra, and ML geometry, are specific classes for our newcomer students. You'll see that 2% of those students were meeting or exceeding the standard, the ones that were enrolled in those classes. So the question that Trustee Land had is probably answered in this slide to a certain extent, that a lot of our students who are newcomers at the very least would struggle with the 11th grade CASP test. Integrated math is a course that, Math 2 is a course that's between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 that some of our students take as a support. Many of the students there struggle, so not many of them pass the test if they're enrolled in that class. And then
To
geometry.
clarify, it's actually between geometry and algebra 2. It's a bridge to algebra.
Geometry and algebra 2, yeah.
Okay.
So not many of the students are enrolled in that because usually it's considered off grade level. Geometry or Math 2 is off grade level as well, because most students should enter 9th grade taking Algebra 1. That's considered at grade level. So the students that are in grade level courses would be Algebra 2. So when we saw that particular piece of data where 36% of the students are meeting or exceeding the standard who are enrolled in Algebra 2, is one of the questions that I think we started to dig in a little deeper and started talking about, like, what are some strategies that we can use as a system to see why the students that are enrolled in the class, that the test is actually testing the concepts that are in that course. So Algebra 2 is aligned with the 11th grade CASP test, essentially, so that only 36% of our students are passing or exceeding that test shows us something's going on. We don't know if it's misalignment with what is being taught in the class or something else, but that was one of the things that we really wanted to make sure we pulled up and started to talk about. This is not data that we've shared with the board in the past. Pathways to statistics, and the last one on the previous slide, is considered at a grade level course, but it is not necessarily content aligned with the CASP test. So it's a statistics specific class where Algebra 2 will cover several other concepts that are more aligned with the CASP test. So that's probably the reason we see the lower pass and exceeding score there.
You may want to just say a word about what Math 2 and 3 are.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Math 2 and 3 are the integrated classes for Cappuccino. Those are similar to geometry, Math 2. Algebra 2 is similar to Math 3. It's just an integrated model, which other school districts have. We just have it at one school. And so these are the courses that are considered above grade level. So students had already passed Algebra 2, and now they're enrolled in these classes, and we can see the pass rates go up quite a bit. Still have a question about finite math and statistics because the 14 students that took that class had already passed or moved on from Algebra 2 and now are taking a class that's above, basically we would just say above grade level course. So we can see that this slide's probably not too surprising to us, that the students are quite a bit above grade level, are going to be passing or exceeding the standard by quite a bit.
Where's the finite math? What schools?
All schools.
That's just
All schools, but just
14. I
but
think
14
there's
students.
very few juniors that are enrolled in that class. It's generally a senior class.
Senior class.
So all of our schools offer it, but it's rare for a junior to take it. It may be that junior just said,
There might be some insight to why that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's not many students enrolled in that class for a reason. Yes, as juniors, I should
Got
say. We can go on to the next slide. So we just wanted to make sure we did cover CAST. So this is a fairly new test, actually. So it is the one that Brian mentioned. Our seniors take this in the spring of their senior year based on the fact that they had gone through 3 courses in science. And generally, you can see the scores. This is the special student population groups, selected student groups. Have stayed pretty consistent over the last 3 years, with the dip for some of the special, some of the smaller groups, again, are kind of moving around a little bit. But generally, this has stayed fairly consistent, in our opinion, for the CAST. So some bright spots from the ELA and math and CAST is we continue to see really strong performance for Asian students. They continue to excel in ELA with high percentage of students meeting or exceeding the standards. We're seeing steady growth for white students. And then math achievement in specific schools, certain schools in the district, we didn't break it down by schools, demonstrate significant growth in math performance. So particularly among our higher achieving subgroups. So with that being said, I'll move on to the areas of growth just because we go back to the
Okay, sorry.
we still see some of these real persistent achievement gaps in math. So our Latino students or African American students continue to score lower in math compared to their peers. And we know this indicates, a need for focused intervention. Math struggles for our socio and economically disadvantaged students. You could see that in the data as well. And then underperformance for ELA Pacific Islander students. And I don't see it on this slide, but we also know that it is a district-wide focus around our multilingual students. So our multilingual students certainly struggle across all three of those data points. So this is something that we've started to brainstorm and we're going to bring back to the teachers. Is just doing a deeper dive into Algebra 2. So looking more closely at the grade outcomes for the Algebra 2 students. So how well aligned are the students that are getting C's or above in Algebra 2 to students that are passing or exceeding the class is one of the questions that we're going to start to look at and share that data and talk about that data with the teachers. Doing some case studies on individual students. So if we begin to see any discrepancies in what we would predict happen, so a student that is getting a fairly good grade in Algebra 2, what might be causing that misalignment with what they're doing on the test. We do wonder sometimes if some of the, some students may come to class and not feel like they want to take the test seriously. So we don't know if that might be influencing some of these scores as well. We're going to do a survey of students after the CASP. I think we started to talk about the actual testing environment for students at some of our schools to make sure that we understand that whatever that environment is feels good to the students and allows them to do the best on the tests that they can. And then, as Brian said, we started to take a look at those different elements of the tests and how they're broken down. And we want to work with our teachers just so they can better understand the areas of the tests that the students are doing well in and the areas that they're not. Like in ELA, the research and inquiry area, we knew that students are just not doing as well in that area. So are we focusing enough in class, or is there some way that sometimes standardized tests require you to go about it in a particular way that we're not actually preparing students to take the test? Other strategies that we're thinking about to address the needs here is we do have some innovations happening at Hillsdale and Cappuccino that we're excited to see the results of. This is the year that the students that started in geometry in 9th grade and are now in Algebra 2 at Hillsdale. So they had a different sequence. Most students go Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. At Hillsdale, we've heard from them, they do Geometry, Algebra 1, Algebra 2. So we are excited to see if that does have an impact on retention and how the students are doing in that Algebra 2 class. Cappuccino has something similar. So they're doing a Math 1, 2, and 3. That integrated pathway was started just about 3 years ago as well. So the students, our 11th grade students this year will be taking the CASPA, so we're hoping to see some improvements based on that. As Brian mentioned, the instructional framework and our instructional leadership initiative, a lot of this has to do with ensuring that all students are engaged in the classes and feel like they have the supports they need to be successful. And this is a particular important point in seeing more of our students take advanced math classes. We saw the difference there when students are able to access some of the higher math classes and how well they will do on the test. We continue to work on additional Tier 2 supports. Tier 2 supports meaning that we're not adding an additional course for students, but we're doing some real-time, in-the-moment support for students that might have some gaps, but we don't want to put them in another class because we know that oftentimes just bogs them down with another course that maybe they can't then take an elective. So those Tier 2 supports are something that we've been working on for a long time. We do have some new common assessments in literacy, and then we're going to pilot in mathematics. We're using the measure of academic progress, or what you would call MAP, with our students, and that will give us some benchmarks to see how are they doing, and how do they look at the beginning of the year, and are we seeing progress through the year. We continue to have some implementation of reading and literacy interventions. This is the second year of an intensive literacy course that's meant for students that are reading significantly below grade level. Those students oftentimes really struggle with all of these classes. And we've expanded that pilot along with some of our other interventions that are at the tier 1 level. We have some new math interventions specific to Algebra 1 that teachers are working on right now. So we hope to see some of that. And then our science teachers continue to evolve their common learning experiences. So those are a sort of common task experience that a lot of students will have in those classes. And with that, I think we're opening it up to questions.
Thank you.
All the belts and suspenders.
Does anybody who has questions? Trustee Griffin.
Yeah, I don't have a question at this point. I mean, I have a lot of questions. I do appreciate the presentation. It was akin to calculus, or whatever math analysis. But you know, one of the things, and this is not, I don't know who to give this constructive criticism to. You know, I asked about the presentation and when it was going to be available, and it was available on Monday, but there's not, other than the performance charts, the linear data, there's not a lot of stuff that's similar. We didn't go into the depth in the preliminaries. So I'm like, oh man, you know, like.
Hey, you got some good questions. Let's go.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, and so I don't know if it's the time frame, because I think it would be helpful for the board to see something that's closer to the and you know, you guys are doing a good job. It's hard stuff. You know, you're not the only ones in the state that have to present data to governing boards. But I'm wondering if it wouldn't be, you know, if we were closer to the final products and had more of this, some of these concepts, you know, it would be easier, I think, for us to deal with some of the concepts and some of the challenges and issues. I mean, you know, it's I know you worked hard on it, and you know, you're putting all your effort there, but it's kind of, at least to me, there's a lot of stuff there. And I know Principal Land here, he's probably already had to deal with this, but you know, I'm a debit and credit guy on during the day. So maybe we could, you know, we could back these up and not have that sense of urgency so that we could have, I mean, because this could take several hours to deal with the questions. And, you know, and it kind of becomes, you just went down to the bowels, to the depths of the ship, you know, to the bowels of the ship there. And, you know, and we're kind of still up on deck, at least I'm up on deck trying to find the stairs to get down there and kind of understand where we're going. Now, I think now that you've made this presentation and we've kind of been got an orientation, the future will be better. And I think it won't be like, oh yeah, look at this.
Well, we talked about this a little bit today in the sense of the timing of when we do this presentation, and really looking to maybe push this out next year into mid to late October. And if we do that, we'll have a little bit more of the data readily available for us to present to you earlier. And what we could do is develop a weekly or two leading up to the presentation so that we can maybe chunk some of this information over maybe 2 weeklies, and then have the presentation and the memo to better prep the board with the there's just a lot of data. You're right.
Yeah,
There's
it's
a lot to go over.
digest at once. Yeah. Trustee Land.
So I'm in the engineering section. I'm down in the basement, and I already been there. So I never got out of the basement. I never got out of the basement. I'm with you guys 100%. But I do really appreciate it. I mean, you guys really dove deep into some major questions. And I think, like I asked, multilingual learners, there's such a divide, there's such a range, a spectrum of them that you really can't, when you see that number and you say, okay, it's gone down, but the logical reason why is maybe newcomers or the ones who have less ability to speak English and they need so much more work. These are things that we have to start considering. So, I will say my concern here, now I'm channeling Peter Hanley. My concern here is we see a drop overall. I mean, you do see a drop.
Right.
And you're starting to see and again, lots of explanations, lots of, understanding that, hey, over time things are changing. But the message to me is we're going down, not up overall. And how do we deal with it? So then when we get, and then again, looking at all that data, I get it. And I know where we need to work, and it's nothing new. And it's not like no one else in the state has this problem. Everyone does.
Yeah.
But again, one of our major goals for this district is to disrupt and try things new. So then I'm going to go back to your last couple pages, which I love. So this is where I'm saying, yay, is when we start getting to your recommendations, your strategies needing to address. And I love the idea of deep diving a little further into subjects. And I would love to continue this conversation that you've started, and Julia, I really am talking to both of you because when you start thinking about, okay, so where are we going with that deep dive? Let us know, because you might be really you might learn something about our district and where we need to go. So then when we get to the last page, your pathway innovations, let's see what's happening with that, because that's the disruption. That's taking something on new. You're identifying the tier 2 supports in the moment. I mean, exactly what Julia is talking about, where we don't need a separate class, but what if we pulled out of that class and had something in the moment for kids who needed certain things? Could there be a co-taught model where it's not just co-teaching, but it's co-teaching at a newer level, where it's an MTSS co-teaching, not a special ed co-teaching, where it's an expert in the room to help out with a class to say, okay, these 5 didn't get the concept in the moment, so they're going to get a reteach. I need this. That's the kind of innovation that we're looking at. But what that means is we got to put our money where their mouth is. That's FTE beyond FTE. That's that going back to what are we doing with FTEs? Because giving help in the moment, I mean, I'm sorry, we're institutionalized in the sense that we have 7 periods of the day and we're one teacher in far charge of 30 kids and 180 kids are on our list to do grading and whatever. What can be different? So when I see this, I look at it and say, I'm supporting you 110% but what it means is then, Julia and Brian, you need to convince Randall that we need to try things differently. And what is that going to look like? And so, when you identify tier 2 supports, could it be in the moment extra teaching? New common assessments, I totally agree. We got to have common assessments. You guys have great PLCs. I know that. I know each school's got their unique PLC work going on. And so when we look at PLCs, you got to have common assessments. And we should be looking at that data at some point. How can we channel up to data that these guys could look at and say, oh, we're doing pretty good. And it goes to that first part of your stuff where the first part of the presentation where you're talking about who's on track and who's not on track, right? And those common assessments really kind of funnel into that a little bit more. And so we'd learn a little bit better the data that way. Sorry, I'm all over the place, but I'm loving the idea of implementing interventions at leading literacy levels, because again, ELs, multilingual learners, and disadvantaged students, economically disadvantaged students, they were struggling in middle school. Some of them had a 3rd grade level reading level, and so how can we help them? I mean, how can I help them? I'm having the same struggles. Try to get them to be at grade level before you get them in 9th grade. So those are some things that I think we need to work on. Again, my compliment to you in this presentation is your strategies at the end. You have some great ideas that need to be fleshed out that I would love to see more of. And going back to what you're saying, it needs to be, okay, well, how's this going? How's this going? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And then how does it affect things? Because overall, again, I'm going to repeat, we are dropping off a little bit. And, and the whole state is, so it's not like this is a surprise, especially with certain subgroups, but I want us to be different. I want us to find the answers so that we can be that, because we are, to be very candid, we are a great district.
Yeah.
We have so many resources. We have so many great things going on. We are being inclusive. We're being, we're doing a lot of the right things. We got the right culture, and I want us to build this the way you're
Yeah.
suggesting it. So, okay, that's my sorry. I know it's 9:00.
I have a couple of questions. So one was, are there any other districts that are similar to ours that are doing things to move the needle that you can think of that might be worth looking at and taking some pointers? Also, second, do you feel that, or have you seen that the level of poverty is expanding in our school district? Are there a lot more students that are housing housing insecure or that are food insecure? And how does that correlate with all of this? That seeing that there's students that have been struggling for a long time, and if that is getting wider in terms of socioeconomics, then that could be a correlation. So, and what can we do about that? I know we have a lot of great services and stuff, and a lot of great, we have ETA, and we've got the food pantries and things like that. But perhaps there are other places that are doing good things too that we can learn from. So
it's one of I think Superintendent Booker mentioned that it would be good for us to have this presentation a little later. It gives us a little more time to look at how other districts are doing.
Yeah.
We don't see yet their scores. They're not published yet. We tend to trend right with Sequoia in our kind of our proficiency in standard met. But we are curious to look at some other districts if they're doing better by some of the student groups that you're referring to, because I think we can do better by some of those groups. What I'll say is challenging around socioeconomically disadvantaged is that we know the cost of living here is so high that the true reflection of struggling financially in our district is a larger percentage than is represented in that group.
In
even
everything,
because
yeah.
because we're looking at federal poverty level.
Yeah.
We're matching at, and that I can't even imagine living at that, but even twice at that level is going to be really challenging for someone to live comfortably around here. So it is an area that we really are going to start. If I would add that to one of the strategies is to take a look at how some other districts are doing who serve some of those student populations that we know we want to focus on. So our multilingual learners, our students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and students that are housing insecure. If they have some ideas on how to support them, I think that's a really good point.
I would just add quickly that in my tenure in the district, the one unceremoniously uncool term is the unduplicated pupil count, right? That's the combination of socioeconomically disadvantaged, but they don't want to duplicate them at the state level. So English learners, homeless and foster youth, and that number has grown significantly in my tenure in the district. So I think you're right. Even with the not Bay Area friendly, calculation, it's still grown. And so I think it's even grown beyond that, above the poverty line sort of stuff. So I think that's true. And I think but just know that I think organizationally, that's not an excuse for us, right? Yes, we appreciate that families have needs, and we need to serve them. And that's why we've invested mightily in social workers and other resources, because we got to support the whole child. So I think we all agree that we are responsible for those kids no matter what they do or don't have at all.
Right. Well, and with our school board associations, ours, we're going to have a workshop with some presenters from from San Jose. There's a school district there that is doing great things for the multilingual learners and getting the test scores up and things like that. And so when that happens, we can bring some information back, and there should be some information share that we can do as well as trustees, because that's our job, is to, when we go to these conferences, is to talk with people and say, hey, this is what we're struggling with, but this is what we can bring back. And maybe it's a partnership, right? So I think we can help each other. So We'll
Totally.
be mindful of that. Are there any others, comments, questions? Yes.
I'll make mine quick. First of all, I want to say thank you to both of you. This was a lot of data. And I'm not sure if I'm on the top of if I'm on the bottom top with, maybe we should just take a cruise together, all of us. No, I'm just kidding. I love data and I think that it's great to take a look at it. And I think it's great to take a deep dive, and also that's where we can come up with some ideas. You guys have clearly come up with some good ideas about what we can, your strategies. So I have a couple of questions. The 10th graders on track to graduate. I'm really glad that we're looking at that, way ahead of time, 10th grade, instead of looking at it, when school starts as a senior, right? So it's great to get our arms around who needs additional support. So I wanted to make a comment because our graduation rates are higher than what's shown here for the 10th graders on track. So that means that your staff, our staff, your team does a really fantastic job in between 10th grade, identifying who needs more support, and then getting each student all the way up to graduation to walk across the stage in August. So I just want to give you, I'm sorry, did I say August? I meant May. I'm having an off night. So I hope does that make sense? And that probably is the reason why the percentages are lower here than they are for the actual graduation rates, is because staff analyzes this and identifies what students need more support to get there. Is that right?
I think that's a piece of it. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was giving you kudos for
Thank
that.
you. I agree.
So my other question is regarding the special populations. I know there's several slides here regarding the select student groups. I was a little bit confused. I think you mentioned this is unduplicated or they're duplicated.
They're duplicated. So if
Duplicated,
if you're Latino, you are also counted in, if you have an IEP, you're also.
Oh, right. Well, I meant on the page where it's economically disadvantaged, students with IEPs, multilingual learners. If you're a student and you fall into all three of those categories,
You are
would you be on all
You
three
are
bars?
duplicated. Yes. In that case, you are duplicated. In that particular slide, yes.
Okay, great. That's it for my questions. But I did want to say thank you for your presentation, and I'll leave it at that because you guys kind of said some of the comments I had, and I would like to take this was a deep dive, but going forward, seeing where we go from here. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think a lot of great things have been said. This was a really good presentation. I know you kind of apologize for getting into the weeds, but I thank you for it. And I thank you for your attention to the details here. And I also appreciate that you're admitting where our weak spots are and what we really need to address. When less than half of our students are proficient in math, it's not something that we want to talk about, but we need to. So yeah. I had a question about so we have school counselors' annual one-on-one meetings with all students. I'm wondering if the ones that we know, the groups who are more at risk, the multilingual learners and some of the others, would it help to do more than once a year for those?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what we would call the tier one approach, right? Is that every student gets this one meeting, but absolutely. I mean, many of our schools with higher concentrations of multilingual learners have a dedicated counselor for that particular student group. So I think depending upon the school and the quantity of those students, we definitely do more than once a year.
Okay.
But that's sort of the guaranteed floor for every student is they have a moment, to get engaged with. But it's a really important thing that we need to keep paying attention to make sure that folks are, providing a higher level of support for the students who have a higher level of need.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Can I add on just on that one, and then you can come back? Would it help to involve, because I think one of the things is parent community involvement somewhere in there. Do we involve the parents when we have these one-on-one, or would that be something okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in acute situations, where a student is really off track, or definitely we engage families off track, meaning like in their classes in the moment or attendance or whatever. So definitely there's definitely outreach that happens. In fact, this is the moment, literally like this next week, I was just talking with our student success coordinators, and they are all about to get the set of students who didn't do so well in the first 6 weeks. It's time. Those grades just got submitted. So so folks are getting organized to reach out and kind of go after kids, whether they want us to come after them or not.
I'm gonna interrupt really quick because I know our student board reps want to leave, but I want to know what they think about this because they're the closest to this than we are.
I wanted
And
to ask
so,
them too.
and perhaps they have some ideas. And then also about taking these, these tests their senior year. How can we get more kids to take them earlier? Go ahead.
I just want to start with thank you. Your presentation was really interesting. The data was really informational, especially as a student. It was interesting to see all this. The strategies also seem really interesting. So thank you. I don't really have much to say.
Yeah, thank you as well. This is kind of my first time seeing this data. At my school, I don't think our students don't really see the importance of taking these tests. Of course, the teachers tell us that like these tests are important because they go to the state, but it's really nice to see that this district is looking at the data and our performance and that the scores don't just go to state and disappear into nowhere. And I would like to comment that I think personally, I see amongst my peers that, again, I reiterate that we don't really see the importance of taking these tests. The most we hear about where our scores go is that they go to the state so that the state can assess how schools and students overall in the state are performing. I don't think students are really aware that the district sees this data and is making changes accordingly. And they don't really see that it has effect other than going to the state because, again, teachers only really mention that it goes to state and they stress that it doesn't affect our graduation status. It doesn't affect anything else in our high school experience. So I think it would be really nice to kind of have more outreach about this.
I think, oh, sorry.
I was going to ask you, what as a student would be motivating for you to hear, like what could we say that would get students to be more interested in taking this test from student perspective?
So I think something that my AP language teacher mentioned last year when we were taking these tests was that I think that's something that really resonated with our class when we heard it was that these scores kind of impact the funding in schools. She mentioned that when it goes to like the state and the state looks at our performance, it kind of I'm not sure if this is true, but this is just what I remember. It kind of, if our school is performing better, the state sees this as progress and may allocate more funding to our school districts, or also that it kind of validates our grade performance, if that makes sense, because my teacher mentioned that there's a lot of like grade inflation and worries about that. And she was mentioning that when students are applying to colleges, when they also look at the academic performance overall from like state testing and AP scores and other testing, and when we score higher, it looks more like our grades are like valid in their eyes.
So it improves, if it improves the way that the college sees you, that might be motivating for students. Okay.
We have discussed
that's a very good point.
We have discussed the possibility of putting it on the transcripts, the score. We haven't done that before. It's something we would have to have a process and we'd have to have a lot of conversations about, but that is one. Then it doesn't really do anything, but it's at least a public sort of pronouncement of that. That is one way that some districts go about kind of reminding students about the importance of this exam.
Okay.
So to your point, Joy, I think one of the ways that we could help students understand how this test directly affects them, right? So it directly affects us as educators because we want to know how you're doing and how we can support and improve. And this is one indicator of many. But when you apply to a college, admissions officers, they're from all over the state. They might not necessarily know San Mateo High School from, I don't know, any other high school across the state. So how do they know what kind of student you are? So they look at a number of things, right? They look at your transcript, they look at your grades, they may look at AP scores, they may look at your application and your essay and your writing skills and the clubs you've been involved with and all those kinds of things. But what they're also trying to determine is who are you, Joy, as opposed to Aisha that goes to Mills. And let's pretend Mills was in a different school district. Well, you guys have the same GPA. Your transcripts look really similar. The clubs you're involved in look real. How do I decide to choose you instead of you. And one of the things they look at is this thing called the school profile. And so the schools publish a school profile, and admissions officers will look at that. And this is kind of a fact sheet and a brag sheet, because you can write it any way you want, right? So some schools in a district that I used to be a part of, our CASP scores were so high that that was like one of the first things we led with. Number 2 in the state on the CASP math, number 1 in the state on CASP ELA. Like, we're trying to tell a story, a brag sheet of the kind of school you go to. And you were just saying this in the sense of validating your grade, right? So if you have an A at a school where math is number 1 in the state, whew, that's a pretty big A right there. So it can impact you, or at least in the way that admission officers look at Joy from San Mateo High specifically. They're going to want to know, what is San Mateo High all about? So I think we could do a better job of communicating that, messaging that to students.
Yeah, and you can be our ambassadors. Oh, well, thank you. I mean, that's exactly why I wanted to know, I mean, you all are in this more than we are, so you live it. So thank you. Yes.
Just 1 or 2 more questions or comments. I did notice in the memo there was a breakdown by school. And if I remember correctly, BHS had kind of overall higher scores across the board, like across all student groups. So to President Andrade Zuniga's point, if we could look at, while we're looking at schools that are doing something right, maybe we look at Burlingame and what's the reason for that. And of course, that has different feeder schools, right? Greg? But so yeah, looking at our feeder schools and finding out what they're doing right, that's maybe, I would think that that's a factor, right? I don't know.
But I think one of the problems with that one is the socioeconomics. I don't know if it's comparable to other schools. So we'd have to get it would have to be something that is similar. That way we can see.
But I'm just saying BHS across all of those groups, even FBS is doing better.
Right.
So,
right.
And I would just say, all joking aside, feeder schools and where they come from in their program and how it integrates does have a factor.
Yeah.
Well, but also
no joking, but
also the demographics of those areas are different.
absolutely. But I think Jen makes a really good point. If you look at BHS and you look at the subcategories as well, you see an increase better than some other schools. And so why is that? And it's not just, some of it will be economics like you're saying, but some might not. Some might be there's actual programs that are making better impact for kids and that's what I'm thinking we should look at too.
Yeah, just while you're talking about what maybe they're already doing some disrupting things that we can continue
in other schools.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember something I wanted to ask. I was also wondering if, I know we don't want to look at it by schools, site by site, or I guess we kind of have the data already, but what do you think, I was wondering how the Yonder pouches may have had an impact as well on students who didn't have access to their phone all day. Maybe they were more, not more serious, but more focused during the class instruction. So then when they took the tests, they retained more knowledge or more. I was just wondering if that had any impact, but you're saying that BHS had higher scores. So we only have one school with the Yonder pouches.
Cautious as to make a lot of causal claims about 2 very different data points. Just meaning that that one doesn't necessarily beget the other, and one way or the other, I don't think we would know. I think that outcomes at San Mateo are good overall, but I think in general, they still have the same gaps that everybody else has. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we gotta move this meeting along. Go ahead.
I meant this to be the last comment because, Trustee Land started with the point, and it was, if you look at the charts, everything's tailing off as we go from left to right. And we were in the COVID period, and we said there was learning loss. and we've put a lot of supports in place, and we're still going like this. And I think it's really, the strategies is where, and I did have some real substantive comments, but I think the strategies are really going to be crucial. And I'm trying to figure out how can the trustees figure out what's going on as you're developing. Is this coming through the instructional console? How is this stuff going to work out? And, how's it going to play out? And how can we get kind of, what did the superintendent say? He didn't say dumps. What was that you used?
Belts and suspenders?
No,
I
not
know,
belt. No, you said you're going to get us a couple of different loads of
Well, big chunk.
big chunks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to.
Yeah, let's
Thought
be
it was
careful
talking
here.
about vowels again.
This is deteriorating quickly.
What I'm trying to say is, I think this is the kind of thing that we would be interested in kind of following the development of, not necessarily each and every meeting and each and every move, but, maybe a follow-up report, or maybe, a Friday report that gives us some of the ideas of what kind of strategies we're trying, and what we think might work, and who we're talking to.
100%.
Like little by little.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm glad you clarified it was chunks and not dumps.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your comment. Well, thank you for your presentation. And we will go on to the next item. Okay, let's see. Construction. Are there any construction items?
Not tonight.
Division of Human Resources.
Yeah.
Mr. Black, you are on.
Yes, we'll start out with the personal consent items. We have the personnel actions, adult school transfers, Pride Prom coordinator job description, a memorandum between the CSEA and district again for the athletic PE study hall supervision, approval of a MOU with a university for student teachers, an MOU for contracting out some work for special education that we were unable to recruit for, and policy number revisions. Those are the 7 items on the HR consent agenda.
Are there any questions from the trustees?
Policy
there
number,
any-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Policy number updates. Is this just what we normally would put on consent in regular consent? Why is it?
No, so
Last week or last meeting, right?
right. So these couple meetings ago, the board approved the 2024 Title IX regulations.
Mhm.
Yep.
And these are new regulations, but they
Right.
don't really replace the old ones altogether, because anything that happened before August of 2024
Mhm.
still relies on those old ones.
Mhm.
So CSBA combined theirs all into one. Lozano Smith advised us to have 2 different policies. So we had to
Okay.
then create.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I get it. But I'd rather have this on regular consent, not the personnel.
Oh.
Why is it in personnel? That's my question.
That's my
Oh,
question.
Because normally policy updates have to be on just regular consent.
But I thought we were doing policy updates in human resource stuff. I think we also approved something earlier.
Well, I
About,
don't think board
whatever
policy
policies.
has been done here in this one before.
This isn't this, well, so in consent, we do have the board updates, like you said tonight. This is something that you've already approved. It's just a change of numbers. So it's
Correct.
I don't think we've ever brought something
Yeah,
like this
right.
before. I've
We've
never had
already-
to change
right.
numbers. It's just because of this Title IX conflict with the old and new regulations.
I guess what I'm saying is, I understand it. I'm not opposed to it. But what I'm saying is, the proper venue for it should have been on regular consent to say if it's going to board policy.
This is HR related.
Okay.
Because again, HR is, in my mind, separate. It's like,
But
Yeah.
Title IX issues are HR, right?
Oh, yeah, maybe it's because it's Title IX.
That is why. So
Okay.
when you look,
Okay.
it's Title IX, not regular, not
Not
board
board
policy
policy.
and not, it's not in our board policy and it's not on our board regulations.
Oh,
no, hold on, let's
Okay,
pause. Let's
so
pause.
these are Title IX issues that are much beyond our
Right.
own
And
board
there's
stuff,
changes, right?
is what you're saying.
Is that correct?
No, so hold on. So these are administrative regulations that were previously passed by the board. the recommendations that we've been getting from Lozano Smith is not about changing the policies, but changing the numbers. When it says AR 514.5.72, no, it should be AR 5145.74. So we're not changing substance of any of the policies. We're just changing the numbers as they apply to personnel and human
Totally get that.
resources. Now,
My point is,
I hear your point. We can move it anywhere you want in the future.
Can we just approve it?
well, I just want to be procedures. It's good to have standard operating procedures. And if we just can have a consistent in the future, can we just make sure that it's on consent?
Yes.
So that it's regulation, because policy regulation changes. When somebody looks in the minutes, they should be looking in the minutes that say it's in the consent agenda.
Well, and now we will never forget that.
I know,
Thank
I'm
you.
such a stickler.
Thank you.
I'm normally not
No,
the
say
stickler, but
at 9:22 at night.
maybe it's because it's 9:22 and I'm all stickler.
Maybe,
right?
yeah. I was wondering why it was there as well. So like if there was a board policy, if there was a policy we were changing and it was around facilities, we wouldn't want to see that under facilities. We would think that's going to be with in the regular consent. So just, yeah.
Having said that, I make a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the consent.
I'll
the human
second that.
resources.
Well, first you need to ask if there's any public comment.
There's none.
Thank you.
And I'll second
Okay.
that.
Oh,
So-
see, there's a procedure here. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, motion by trustee Land.
And I seconded that.
Okay, second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving
Yeah,
on.
the first item on HR is the personnel action addendum, and there's no recognitions, specific recognitions.
I move to approve the personnel addendum.
Well, first I need any comments.
Okay.
Are there any comments from the trustees? No. Are there any comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay, motion by trustee Jacobson.
I'll
Second.
second that. Oh, go ahead.
Go, no.
Okay, second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Okay. Public hearing.
Yes,
Dr.
so this is a public hearing for AB 1200, which we're going to find out when exactly it was created, but it was created to ensure local education agencies throughout California are prepared to meet their financial obligations. The district submitted its AB 1200 to the county office for its oversight, and we received approval, and now we're required to have a public hearing.
Thank you. I will open up the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. Those are always very silly. Okay, thank you. Approval of tentative agreement with SMUHSD TA.
Sure, yes. So this was referred to previously. We reached an agreement with the Cemetery Union High School Teachers Association of that included many things, but as a brief overview, we agreed to a salary schedule increase of 4%. We expanded some of the co-curricular positions like mock trial and robotics, and then moved other ones up through the categories. We are proud to work with the Teachers Association in terms of healthcare benefits, and we agreed to a joint statement that says the Teachers Association and the district agree that controlling healthcare costs is in the best interests of both parties, and we agreed to work together, and we will undergo an education campaign for our members about the differences, benefits, and costs between the HMO options and the health saving account options. And this is really important because right now the ongoing and one-time funds applied to increasing the health benefits from what was in the contract of this year is a cost of $2.7 million. And that is what we will need to recover as we go into 2026, not counting any increases. So it's a very important and, expensive situation that we're in, but we did agree to address this jointly. Other things in the agreement are a evaluation rubric for our athletic directors that went full-time last year, a new job description for the deans that are now at every school. We agreed to extend the multilingual program class size into this school year. We lowered the guidance counselor, school counselor ratios, and we redrafted the sabbatical language. So we recommend approval of the district's agreement with the Cemetery Teachers Association.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the trustees? Okay. Comments from the public?
There are none.
All right, I would like a motion.
I make a motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yay, thank you. All right. Approval of tentative agreement with CSEA.
And the district also agreed with the CSCA Chapter 519 for 24-25 with the same salary increase and medical benefit coverage. We also added career growth language, an MOU for bus drivers, and we agreed on clarification to the reclassification process. And we recommend approval of the agreement.
Thank you. Questions or comments from trustees? Okay. Questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. All right. Motion.
I make a motion to approve the agreement with CSEA.
I second.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Jacobson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Approval of salary schedules.
And these are the 7 salary schedules that are related to the 2 agreements that you just approved. So we recommend approval of these revised salary schedules.
Thank you. Questions, comments, trustees? Questions, comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. Motion.
I make a motion to approve the salary schedules.
I'll second that.
Motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. We have another public hearing, right?
Slide it down for you.
Okay. Hold on. Thank you. All right. Division of Student Services.
None this evening.
Division of Instructional Services.
So
Dr.
this is
Duncan.
a public hearing for the sufficiency of our instructional materials and approval for certification of our textbooks and instructional materials.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. Okay. Adoption of resolution for and approval of certification.
So this is going along with the public hearing. This is approving and adopting the resolution for textbooks and instructional materials that are included in that attachment.
Questions or comments from trustees? Questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Approval of self and social empowerment course of study.
So this is the course formerly known as Guided Studies. We're updating the course name to Self and Social Empowerment. And this is also just an update to the course of study to align with the strategies that they're using for the students. And the teachers came together and put together the course of study based on their most up-to-date practices.
Thank you. All right. Questions or comments from the trustees? Questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Okay. Motion.
I move adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. Division of Business Services.
None this evening.
Okay. Nothing in board operations. Future board agenda items are, well, so far we have CTE, Math Pathways, Partner Districts, cell phone in the classroom in November. Trustee Jacobson, I think you.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, I know that Randall has brought this up in weeklies that in our board policies, we are to have a annual board self-evaluation. And I wanted to agendize us discussing how we're going to move forward on that. And
Yeah, we'll, I can't even talk. We will definitely do that. And we're working on our board governance stuff too. So it'll be all encompassing.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Just a question on that. Is the board self-evaluation in closed session or open session?
The development of how you're going to do it would be an open session. The actual self-evaluation is in closed session.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Yes.
So I just have to make a statement. I was kind of disturbed by the adult school presentation today and some of the things that were said. And so I want to address that in ideas for agendizing items. So a couple of things that I would like to recommend. I'd like to recommend a study session for developing the use of funding for the sale of Crestmore based on what originally the plan was when we were on board, a different board.
Right.
And so I'd like to have that conversation because we need to evolve, obviously, and this is a new board. So what are our intentions and where are we going? Future of Bridge Academy location, that would be a subject, or adult school space. You know, that would be a study session as well that I'd like to either have integrated or separated as part of a future item.
Well, and we have talked about the bridge program, right? So an update then, like
Right.
updating our
Update's fine,
choice.
but I think adult school location or what's going
Yeah,
on,
no,
that would
definitely.
be kind of a good study
I
session.
think that'll evolve that agreement that we made.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. So with that said, I wanted to say thank you to our ASL interpreters and our Spanish language interpreters. They are troopers. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.